All right, well, let's pray and get started today. We are excited to be doing our last session before summer break, and then we'll come back in the fall and do these faith-building classes again. But we're excited that we've been able to go through, I think, 7 or 8 of these already. So it's been really exciting. So let's pray, and then I'm going to introduce Spero to you, and he's going to share his heart today. God, thank you for today. Thank you for the chance we have to study your word together, to be together, learning just how to be more effective at helping people who are struggling with addictions, Lord. And Lord, maybe there are people in this room that are struggling with addictions that are even hidden, God, not in the open, but Lord, there are things that I know you're going to use Spero today to speak into our hearts and our lives, God, and just battling those things. And Lord, I thank you for the story Spero has in his own life, God, and I pray that you would just anoint him and use him powerfully to share with us, God, the things that he's learned, not only in his own life, but in helping many other people as they've struggled with addiction themselves. And so we just give this time to you and thank you for it. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Well, Spero is a good friend of mine. I've known him for quite a few years now, and just I love his heart for just helping people. He sponsors so many people and has helped so many people. We've developed just a friendship personally, and just found just a great man who just has a good heart. And I'm excited that he gets to share this topic because I know it's dear to him, and he has a lot of wisdom and a lot of experience to go with it to share with us in helping us in this area of addiction. So, Spero, I'm going to leave it over to you.
Thank you. Hey everybody, good morning.
Good morning.
Wow. I'm going to be honest, I'm a little nervous, okay? And that's okay. I don't have a fear of public speaking. I'm not somebody who doesn't have the gift of gab. Spoken in meetings, in hospitals, in institutions. I've spoken to addicts in conventions. But the truth is that I've always spoken to addicts and people that are on that side of addiction, okay? And this time I'm actually speaking, not per se, I don't know anybody's personal stories here, right? So I'm actually speaking on a different topic, but it's not a different topic. It's how do we bridge those two worlds or those two, opposite sides of the spectrum together in helping, right? And not only in helping the suffering addict, but in also helping the congregation understand a little bit about what it means to be an addict with the disease of addiction, okay? There's probably a lot of debate out there. People have their personal opinions on a lot of things. Is it a disease? Is it just selfishness? Is it just somebody who doesn't have willpower? Is it just, I'm going to just share my experience, strength, and hope, and what I've been taught and mentored through being a member of a 12-step program. This is a faith-building class, and I just want to say thank you to Pastor Kevin for even considering me for such task, but I just want to thank him for continuously trying to think outside of the box on how to be more welcoming, how to carry the message, right? And how to carry our, the good news. How do we stay, in the spirit of Jesus, right? Who healed lepers, who healed, who expelled demons, he just did all kinds of miracles, right? So I don't want to get into that because I just want to say this is I'm not a teacher. I'm not a professor. I'm not a chemist. I'm not a preacher. I'm not a pastor, right? So I have no professional experience or preparation or studies in any of these areas, right? I don't. The only thing that I have is my preparation is my life, struggling with the disease of addiction for over 20 years, right? And trying to figure it out. And then what happened to me and how I not only found the 12-step program that saved my life, right? I have 16 years clean today from all mind and mood altering chemicals, including alcohol, okay? I say that, but in my program, I don't need to differentiate by that because addiction is, well, we're just going to speak about addiction to possibly substances because that's my experience, but addiction could be anything, okay? It's anything that we use excessively, right? That makes our lives unmanageable, regardless of the consequences. It's anything that we put in place of God, in that God space, that we make our God, right? So I just wanted to disclaimer that I'm not a professional at anything, okay? I only have my experience, strength, and hope here, okay? And I'm a proud member of Narcotics Anonymous, okay? Who got its start through Alcoholics Anonymous, right? And Alcoholics Anonymous got its start from the Oxford group, okay? And I'm not going to get into the whole history of AA and NA and CA and HA and EA. However, I will say this about it is, I don't think that you can separate the origins of the 12 steps, whether we admit it or not in our rooms, because we want to be all-inclusive in a program, because we don't differentiate between religions, and we don't differentiate between faiths, and we don't differentiate between age or race or sexual identity or creed or religion or lack of religion. And those are actually, that's all lingo from our readings in our program, okay? But the truth of the matter is that our origins come from the Bible, okay? And whether we start saying that in the rooms, there's some people who've gone through some hurts and some abuses and bad experiences and hypocrisies in churches and religions and things that they got messed up, right? They got messed up in their beliefs. So if they came into a 12-step program where we start hitting them with the God thing and the Jesus thing and the Old Testament thing and the going to hell thing, but don't worry, you're saved thing, they'll be running out the door. They'll be gone. They're not ready for that yet, right? We in our program, we trust that God's doing his job, right? He's doing his thing in his way, in his time, in his preparation, right? So we just trust that everybody that comes to a 12-step program, through working the 12 steps of our program, which we're going to talk about a little bit here, will ultimately find his own personal higher power, right? And I'm going to tell you that when I grew up Greek Orthodox, okay? That's my religion, right? I went to these beautiful churches with these beautiful domes and these stained glass windows, and the priest gave sermons in old ancient Greek, and I didn't understand a word he said. But I knew that was the house of God, and those stained glass windows of all the saints were all looking at me, right? No matter where you went, look at me. Then all of a sudden I just started doing this. Because I had some shame, right? But me personally, and that's why I think Christians in general have a tiny bit easier time with a 12-step program, at least with the second step, is that they already have a belief in something, right? Some people come in a belief in nothing, and I don't know if a clean slate or a clean canvas is better than one that was all muckied up, because maybe when you got one that's all muckied up, you've got to clean it and get all that junk off of it and get to the truth and then get to a clean canvas anyways. So I don't know which one's better, okay? But there's just so much information. I just want to say this, is that I have no preparation for this. I have nothing scripted. I tried to get something scripted, and I realized real quick that that's not how my brain operates. Okay, it just doesn't. You know, we have a lingo in our program where we let the Spirit move us, right? We feel like the minute our head gets in the middle of something, we start to mess things up, right? So we're not confused that we have Spirit inside us, and when we tap into that Spirit, God not only guides us, but He'll also show us the way, and that includes in our words, right? Like if I could just shut this off and I listen to this, like I can share a message of like, I want the Holy Spirit to speak through me, right? I don't want Spero to speak through me, okay? Because I will screw it up. So I know how my brain operates. I did write down some notes just to keep my mind in order here, okay? And so we started off with a prayer, and there's a prayer that we say in our program, and it's recited thousands of times every day in programs across the country and across the world, and it's called our Serenity Prayer, okay? And the Serenity Prayer, some of you might know it, some of you might not know it, but I want to start this off with the Serenity Prayer, right? And it says like this, it's God grant us the serenity, God grant us the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, right? And that would insinuate that, God, I got some problems in my life, and some of them I can work on and some of them I can't, right? And I need you to help me to discern which ones are workable and which ones I can't work on, and I just need to turn them over to you, right? And there's a third step prayer that says, take my will in my life, guide me in my recovery, and show me how to live, right? And we say that almost every day, right? We say that almost every day in the in our meetings, you know. I'm not going to give a ton of statistics on addiction, right? On drugs, on how many thousands of pounds of drugs come into this country a year. I'm not going to give a statistic on how many kids use drugs before the age of 12. I'm not going to give a statistic of how many families are destroyed by drugs every year, how many kids are born with the disease of addiction, shaking crack addict babies, right? Or heroin or opioid, babies that are born. I'm not going to tell you about the families that are crushed and destroyed. I'm not going to tell you how many people die from this disease every year, because I don't have those statistics, and I don't think it's really important. But I do know this: the answer to all of them is a lot, right? A lot of people are addicted. A lot of kids use drugs and have no clue what they're getting themselves into. A lot of babies are born, right? A lot of people die from this disease of addiction, right? And I don't want to, you can Google all that stuff, okay? The biggest thing that Narcotics Anonymous or Alcoholics Anonymous or any of these 12-step programs, the way that we go about it, and if our beginnings are derived from the Bible, right? Well, let's just use the Bible. It's okay for me to say Jesus. See, I'm apprehensive about saying Bible and Jesus because I've been trained mentally not to kind of say that too much in an AA or I'm going to say NA, okay? In an NA meeting. I'm an NA member, okay? I'm conditioned not to say it, not because I'm ashamed of it, not because I don't want to scream from the highest mountain that Jesus is my Lord and Savior and I'm nothing without Him and I'm a sinner and thank God for God. I got no problem saying that. I read the other book all the time, and I might reference some scripture in what I say, and I might reference some basic text, which is our reading, our main piece of literature in Narcotics Anonymous. I'm not going to be perfect on which chapter, which verse, or which this, but when I say it, if I say it, you'll know exactly what it is, because that's what we do. We read it and we meditate on it, we keep it on our lips, right? And that's what we're supposed to do when we read. But what I want to say is that our approach to the disease of addiction in the program is a little bit different than the world's, okay? We go about it with love and empathy and compassion and understanding and not judging, right? With humility, no big I's and little U's, I just want to ask, and if anybody wants to give up their anonymity, let's just say, Has anybody ever been to an AA or an NA meeting? Is there any addicts in the rooms? Are there any alcoholics in the room that are part of a 12-step program? And if you have, that would be great if you raise your hand. Okay. Wow, awesome. Okay? So, when I say we, you guys know exactly what I mean, right? But with this other side of the spectrum, right? And I sponsor, you brought up the fact that I sponsor a few guys. And one of the biggest things that my friends or my guys or some of the members of NA, especially early, they want their family members to understand. They just want to understand. Why don't you understand? A family member says, kid, you destroyed your life. You lost your car. You lost your job. You lost your family. You lost all your money. You've been to jail 3-4 times. Why don't you just stop? Right? And the kid says, like, I can't. Like, don't you understand? I just can't. Right? I'm powerless. You know, our first step in our program says I'm powerless over my addiction and my life had become unmanageable. Powerless means powerless, right? I can't not use, right? I need the intervention of a higher power in my life, not only to get me to stop, but to stay stopped, right? And to help me stay stopped, right? But when they get fixated on trying to explain to somebody else what it's like to be an addict, don't you understand? Like, and this is nothing to anybody. Anybody who's not an addict can never understand what it means to be an addict. You can't. You can't feel that. You can't have that obsession. You don't know what that obsession, that compulsion, that negativity, that depression, right? So I want to just show you this. Here it is. In order, it says, what is the disease of addiction, right? So the definition of addiction in the dictionary says, the fact or condition of being addicted to a particular substance, thing, or activity. A compulsive chronic physiological need for a habit-forming substance, behavior, or activity having harmful physical, psychological, or social effects and typically causing well-defined symptoms such as anxiety, irritability, tremors, nausea, upon withdrawal or abstinence, the state of being addicted, right? Or a strong inclination to do, use, or indulge in something repeatedly. That's society's definition of addiction, okay? An addict's definition of addiction is, and there's a reason why I'm doing this, okay? So an addict, when he sees the word we, right? We know who we are. But somebody who's not an addict, right? In order for you to understand to the best of your ability to see what an addict is to take yourself out of your own shoes and put yourself in another person's shoes, right? And to see what they see, so you can feel what they feel, so you can empathize with what their situation is, right? And I'm going to give this is what NA's definition of who is an addict is. You just heard what society's definition of who's an addict is, but this is what an addict would say. And I gave it to somebody who's not an addict on purpose, right? So that maybe Pastor Kevin can empathize with what an addict thinks the disease of addiction is. Would you read that, please?
Sure. Most of us do not have to think twice about this question. We know. Our whole life and thinking was centered in drugs in one form or another. The getting and using and finding ways and means to get more. We live to use and use to live. Very simply, an addict is a man or a woman whose life is controlled by drugs. We are people in the grip of a continuing and progressive illness whose ends are always the same: jails, institutions, and death.
Right. And that's like the sobering truth of what an addict is, right? And it's a problem, and it is a disease, right? And when we come at this disease amongst us, we have a identification that when you come in and you say, when I say, my name is Spero and I'm an addict, first and foremost, it's probably the first honest thing I've said in a long time. Because I've been lying to the world, trying to hide this thing from everybody because of my shame and my guilt and my remorse and my low self-esteem and my insecurities and all the things that continuing to use drugs caused in my life, right? So that I have to put on these masks and I have to use things like denial and rationalization and justification and just all the things we do to separate or to get you to think that I'm okay because I am so ashamed of myself, right? Because, not only because, just the mere truth of my life becoming so unmanageable that it's out of control, right? But I'm still human. I still want to be loved. I still want to be accepted. I still want to be treated like a human being. I still want to have some self-respect. I still want people to respect me. But now people are looking at me like something I need to get fixed, right? And if we don't come at it with that empathy and compassion, the opposite is judgment and anger, right? And although the disease of addiction is something that's super frustrating, right? Like I don't know how you can show empathy and compassion for somebody that just like stole your TV, robbed your purse, right? Needed to get one more, took the car, didn't show up for work again, came home, maybe kicked the dog, maybe got violent with the family. I gotta have empathy and compassion for that? No, and I'm not saying to do that. You know, there's another program to help people on that side of it that you gotta take care of yourself. Because it's a powerful thing to have to use and not be able to stop, you know? So the empathy and the compassion part, and I don't want to get too caught up in that too, because there's so much information. For everybody who thinks that there's not enough information and they're so frustrated, there's so much information out there that you can get lost in how much information, whether it's biblical or whether it's solution or program or this or that. The problem is that it's a problem, right? And empathy is looking at somebody's problem, right? And sympathy is looking at somebody, right? Sympathy, you feel sad for the person. With empathy, you can look at the problem and keep the person separate, right? So we come at this with empathy and compassion, right? And if those aren't spiritual principles taught by our higher power, Jesus, okay, I don't know what is. You know, that's the moral rule, you know? And an addict pretty much just wants to have some kind of dignity and self-respect. They cause it to themselves. Don't get me wrong. I cause my problems all to myself. But the bottom line is that there's a problem. If there's a problem, there needs to be a solution. And if the problem is powerlessness, right, then the solution to that problem is power. But I just told you, I don't have that power. Who's got the power, right? A higher power. Some people don't have the higher power that we do, right? Some people are confused. So they got to come to this process, right? And then the process is the solution, right? So there's a problem, there's a solution. We're teaching somebody here. We're teaching people. First of all, I feel that it's really important for people to understand that 12-step programs are given to us by God. I do. I believe that that God, all of our literature is God-inspired. You know, just like the Bible is God-inspired, right? It was given to prophets, and then prophets pursued the word, and you know, and it was all God-inspired, right? And I believe that this program is God-inspired, right? And anybody can get this program, but there is a little reading that we read, and it's hard. It's hard to. And we're going to get to this other part first, but it's a JFT reading, and it says they can be analyzed, counseled, reasoned with, prayed over, threatened, beaten, or locked up, but they will not stop until they want to stop, right? That's talking about an addict. There's basically nothing you can do to get an addict to stop until they want to stop, right? And the truth is that we want to come in, we want to save addicts. And I'm not here to tell people, like, if you have loved ones or if you have somebody in your life that's addicted, I'm not here to tell you how to treat that person, how not to treat that person. I'm here to give some information. I would never tell anybody, you know, how to deal with a kid that's on drugs or addicted or alcoholic or a family member or a husband or a wife, or like, kick them out. They'll be, that's how they'll reach their bottom, or, enable them. You got to teach them with love. I'm not telling anybody any of that. That's not my place. That's not what we do. But if there's a problem, there has to be a solution. Okay. And I want somebody, can I just get a volunteer to read? Like, this is the solution. This is what our program, so if there's a problem, what is an addict, right? The solution to the problem is there's a 12-step program, okay? So at least you have one solution. Mitzi, can you read?
NA is a nonprofit fellowship or society of men and women for whom drugs had become a major problem. We are recovering addicts who meet regularly to help each other stay clean. This is a program of complete abstinence from all drugs. There is only one requirement for membership, the desire to stop using. We suggest that you keep an open mind and give yourself a break. Our program is a set of principles written so simply that we can follow them in our daily lives. The most important thing about them is that they work. There are no strings attached to NA. We are not affiliated with any other organizations. We have no initiation fees or dues, no pledges to sign, no promises to make to anyone. We are not connected with any political, religious, or law enforcement groups, and are under no surveillance at any time. Anyone may join us regardless of age, race, sexual identity, creed, religion, or lack of religion. We are not interested in what or how much you used, or who your connections were, what you've done in the past, how much or how little you have, but only in what you want to do about your problem and how we can help. The newcomer is the most important person at any meeting because we can only keep what we have by giving it away. We've learned from our group experience that those who keep coming to our meetings regularly stay clean.
Thanks, Mitzi. So it sounds like a pretty nice solution to a pretty horrible problem, right? And it's pretty, as crazy as it sounds, it's a pretty simple solution. However, an addict needs to reach that point of needing some help and asking for some help before we can direct him to that. I just want to say one more thing before we do something here, is that I gave you the definition of what an addict, the definition of addiction, and there's also a definition of the addict. One exhibiting compulsive, chronic, physiological, psychological need for habit-forming substances. One strongly inclined to do, use, or indulge in something repeatedly. And I was really, really surprised. I was really surprised when I looked them up because I just wanted to give you a grammatical definition of what Merriam-Webster dictionary says an addict is. And right under it, it says synonyms, right? And these are the synonyms. These are the synonyms used for what an addict is. Dopehead, doper, druggie, fiend, freak, head, hophead, hype, junkie, stoner, user, right? Does that sound like we're having compassion for somebody who has a disease that's mental, physical, and spiritual, that needs love and compassion and empathy, right? So with synonyms like that, it's no wonder that addicts hide in shame and become isolated, right? And they believe that like nobody can understand them, It is a disease. I can't speak my truth and then give these little, to me, I'm just going to speak. Like somebody said, do you believe in God? I said, no, I don't believe in God. I know there's a God, right? I don't have to believe anymore. My faith has grown to the point where I know, right? And it's the same thing with when I say it's a disease. I know it's a disease. Anybody can have their opinions on what they want to call it, but I know it's a disease. And that doesn't sound very empathetic and compassionate to somebody who has a fatal disease, just as fatal as cancer, as heart disease, as diabetes, maybe even more. Society has started to legalize drug use, You could call it a gateway drug, you can call it whatever you want. They're starting to, for some reason, allow poison to be brought into our country in truckloads, right? And there's enough to like kill the entire population. The truckloads that are brought in can kill the entire population of the United States, okay? if it was just dispersed and taken at one time, And there's something really inherently wrong with that, right? So there's a little a schedule in the front of this thing, and what I put is we talked about what is addiction. We talked about who's an addict. We talked about what is a 12-step meeting, right? Mitzi explained to us what a 12-step meeting is. We discussed. This is more of a discussion, right? And if anybody's got any questions, that's cool. We're going to do that too, and I want to talk. But I want to switch something around because I woke up 2 days ago, right? And I've been thinking about this thing for a while. I've been thinking about it. It's been giving me. I didn't know where to go with this, and I just said I'm going to just trust God, right? And I woke up, and my spirit was telling me that to ask a dear friend of mine to come out and give an impact statement, okay? Because I'm gonna let this person speak to the impact statement on her own. I just want to introduce. So we swapped where it says my personal story and our impact speaker. I'm gonna put the impact speaker first. So I just want to introduce Mary. Mary is going to speak for a few minutes, 5, 10, 20, whatever she feels comfortable with. Come on up, Mary. Mary is a dear, dear friend of mine. She's a huge part of my life, huge part of my recovery, huge part of my walking in faith. We do this in groups. That's what the church is. It's a group of people. My people, this is my, people I love are here to support me, and I'm really grateful for you guys too. Okay? But without further ado, I'm going to let Mary take the table. I love you. You got it. It's yours.
Hi, I'm Mary. So, I've been in recovery for 35 years. I've helped many people throughout that time. And I just have to say this. We brought up the serenity prayer and that powerlessness. A lot of people walking the face of this earth, until I came to Narcotics Anonymous, I didn't realize how powerless I was. And it is a gift to know that there is a God and I'm not God. And that's the greatest gift I was given in recovery. But with that said, this disease, no matter how much I want someone to get it, the one person I would have wanted to get it the most was my daughter. And she died July 3rd last year from an overdose. And that was probably the most painful thing I ever had to go through. And when it happened, because you wake up in the morning and everything's beautiful, and within an hour, your whole world is shut down. My daughter was raised in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. She knew, she never saw me use. She never saw me do anything. So when you look at that, you're like, why? How come, God, I can help all these people, and you're this loving God? And I struggled with it for a little bit. And I gave every ounce of my energy sponsoring women, attending meetings, speaking at conferences, giving back like I was taught to, but the one person I couldn't give back to was my daughter. Why? And that was hard. That was really hard to deal with. And I got to tell you, I prayed so hard for her freedom because I watched my daughter in the last year and a half turn from a woman who was an amazing mother, who was at every baseball, did everything possible. She was a light in my life. She gave joy to everyone she met. And I watched her deteriorate from heroin. And like it was shared, the shame and the guilt because I'm in recovery. I'm this big NA person, and it only made it worse for her, I felt. But I prayed really, really hard that she would be freed from the disease of addiction. And you know what? My prayer was answered. Maybe not the way I wanted it, but I didn't have to watch her suffer in that, and I didn't have to watch my grandson suffer through it, because that last year and a half was horrific. I literally lived 3 houses from her, and I could look down the street and see when chaos was happening. I was on call 24/7 to run down there to rescue kids, pull her out, do this. I watched her drive her car into the sign. I had to get the kids. I watched the police take her away. I watched her go to jail. I watched my little girl that I loved with all my heart and soul get taken from the disease of addiction. But I gotta tell you guys, the one thing I had that maybe other people don't have is I had empathy. Because I know what it's like to not be able to stop. But I also had hope for her, because I know that it's available to everybody who wants to recover. So that was it was just a hard thing. So this disease is, I'm just going to say it, I can't say it in the room. This is the devil in action. It comes to steal, destroy, lie, and tell you all kinds of things that aren't true. That go ahead. It's so cunning. It tells you, come on, you could have one, and then you pick up one, and guess what? It tells you what a piece of garbage you are for picking up the one. It's always the switch. It's the switch. And that's what I got to, I don't want to make it all bad. My daughter came out of jail, went into treatment, came out, and I got 2 months with her, completely free from the disease of addiction. I was giving back my daughter. She had to live with me. She lost everything. She lost the kids. She lost the house. She lost the dogs. But I got her back for 2 months. And what turned and why that one time, I don't know. She woke up in the morning. She was going to New York. Her son was in the baseball Cooperstown. They drove all, she hugged me. She said, I'm going to miss you so much when I'm gone. I said, honey, you're only going to be gone 3 days. She said, I love you. And they called me the whole way out there. They were laughing and joking in the car, having a beautiful time. All she wanted was her family back. And that night in the hotel, she took something and didn't wake up. So I couldn't even see her. She was gone for, the body, it was, to this day, I sometimes go, this isn't real. This isn't fair. That's what my head keeps saying. This isn't fair. And then it's like, why me, why not me? But I'm going to tell you, in Narcotics Anonymous, I sat with a woman, how many years ago? 5, Jeff? I sat with a woman whose daughter happened the same thing, and I remember praying in my head and going, God, I never want this to be part of my story. Please, 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 please. And then it happened. But that woman is helping me now. I was there that day, but she's helping me now. And I know God has my daughter. I know she's free. I know she's dancing. I know that this disease was not her. She didn't die from a sin. We're all sinners, but she's not like, oh my God, now she's in hell. I don't feel that way. And after she passed, it was a little bit. And I had a dream, and we were sitting at a McDonald's of all things. I never go there. But we're sitting at this thing, and she's like 12, and she looks, typical 12-year-old. Like, I hate you, Mom, whatever. And then all of a sudden I looked up, and she was 3. And she had these cute little pigtails, and I'm like, oh my God, you're so adorable, honey. How old are you now? And she said, I'm free, Mom. I'm free. And I was like, thank you. She's free. Because this disease, living with it and in it, is not a life. So I believe that God answered my prayer. So I don't know. I know one thing, that when I see people on the street, or I see people suffering with this disease, I have a level of empathy that maybe is greater. I don't know if it's greater, but you know what? It's a gift. It's a gift. I don't have that arrogance. It says in the Bible, what? Haughty eyes, lying tongue, all the things God hates. I don't have to have that. I pray every day to never have that. Because God bless me if I'm ever unkind to another addict, using or clean. And that's just something that we try to say in the rooms, And I have friends that come an hour away just to hear me talk for 10 minutes, What kind of support is that? It's something that's beyond imaginable. And Pastor Kevin did the service for my daughter, and I don't know, you remember how many people were there, the community that happens. So the stigma of being an addict, I was ashamed when I first came to NA that I let myself go there. But the reality is it was the greatest gift I was ever given. I've touched more lives than probably most people can. We all have. Anyone in recovery, you should, if you can't ever get an experience, go to a world convention. You'll be blown away at the amount of people there. And hugging and laughing, and it doesn't matter what you look like, where you came from, what you have. It's a true, true gift to be a member of Narcotics Anonymous. And the saddest part is that, like we read, jails, institutions, and death. And in our meetings, there's always an empty chair in the middle for the addict that didn't make it, and all I see is my daughter. But somehow, some way, this experience will help somebody else, I guess. If anyone's here struggling with a child, just the one thing, my daughter, she had journals, and 'cause she was an IOP, and she always wrote, "I always have my mom." That's a gift. She always had me. I was probably one of her greatest cheerleaders to help her, and I don't have that regret that I kicked her out, that I did all that. That's just not me. It's not my story. I don't have to feel that. I know this is a God program. I know God took her home for me because I watched her pick up again, and I couldn't live through that, neither could her children. So, I don't know. I hope that helped. You know what? I am sorry. Spero just asked recently, and we're actually doing a celebration today of one of my sponsees who has 30 years, so I can't stay long. We have to go and prepare for that, but I wanted to come and at least let everybody know that, there's always hope,
Right.
whether it's here or on the next one, because I do believe in my heart and soul that God spared my daughter the life of the horrors of the addiction of heroin. And do I miss her? Yeah. But I'll see her again. And that's it.
Thank you very much. And I just, how do you not tear up? Right? How do you not tear up? There's only one way not to tear up. If you don't have empathy and compassion. Right? If we don't have empathy and compassion for each other, regardless, right? Because Mary hit the nail on the head. It is the devil. And I'm not confused. Okay?